what advice you give to our viewers when they are planning about putting things on the cloud alongside with their business?
When you start your business, they get free cloud credits. You get $100,000, $50,000. People are very happy and they start putting in their application. They start designing the application around it. And you've not accounted for a cloud cost in the long term. You're already accounting that this $10,000 or $5,000 credit that you have is going to play a long term with you.
How did you win trust from banks? It is a very strict organization and a lot of compliance and procedures are kick in when you go out and work with a bank.
It did not happen overnight. They have a lot of guidelines. They have a lot of procedural formalities that they need to follow.
So today's story is cloud storage and data and how that works. Today we have Murphy John. He is Chief Growth Officer of StorX Foundation. Let's chat with Murphy and know his story, and let's deep dive into data storage and cloud storage things. So John, let's go down the memory lane. When you started your career?
So my career started in 1998. That's actually after the graduation. So we started looking into cloud. We started actually looking into the internet. So internet was just happening across. There were a lot of growth stories which was coming around, and they were making a lot of waves. And we found that this is going to be something really very interesting and something that is going to do really good in the future. So that's where we started looking into this field. We started specializing. We started doing a little deep dive. We started doing courses, and then we started with the first we set up the own infrastructure company, an internet infrastructure company. We thought that there is a huge demand for this infrastructure to be set up. So we were setting up servers, we were setting up websites, we were setting up email services and all the allied services for corporates in India. So that's where our journey started. Typically, the adoption was very fast. So in that point of time, it was a time then there were not many organizations which were offering the services, but the demand was really very huge. So we were very lucky enough that we got that right, and we were able to learn a whole lot of things and see the whole cycle going across. So we were from the start, we went to the hype, and then we were in the downtrend also. So we saw the whole circle of .com growth, .com boom, and .com bust in our journey.
Amazing. So John, you started when there were no smartphones, right? There was a computer with a modem, and it used to call through a telephone line to get the internet connection, right?
Yeah.
Then came the era of smartphones, and then the transition happened, and now then the rest is history. So while going through this journey, what were the main challenges you guys faced?
So the main challenges that we had was the perception or the mindset that people used to have. So typically, as I told you, we were right from the starting when the boom started, when the internet adoption was happening crazily over India, and there were people who were not ready to adopt this technology, and there were people who were overutilizing it or also misusing, if that is the right term. So what happened was, though there was a requirement, people were not adopting it. And then there were some people who were overselling like this, everything in the height of the .com, just before the .com boom or the bust. Everybody wanted everything to be on the internet. That's practically impossible. Everybody were coming up with crazy concepts. And then what happened was people started looking at this as this is like somebody who is kind of running Ponzi schemes, or somebody who is trying to make a money and run away. And there were a lot of organizations which were in that point of time, which promised something hype, which took a lot of money and ran away overnight. So there are a lot of things. So the fighting the mindset that we are in the market, we are there to help customers, and we are there for long term, was the biggest challenge that we had during the whole period of time. And obviously, after the bust came in, they're all like run by night operators. They're all evaporated and still there in the market. So that was a great learning for us as well. So never overpromise and overpromise anything that is in terms of technology, which is that.
So Murphy, one thing I'm very curious about: how do you sell something to people that they don't understand yet?
Yes. So that's we were lucky enough to see that two booms in our life. First was it started with internet and then the blockchain services. So what happens is there is a lot of understanding and lot of deep dive that needs to be done on the technology. First, when we were way back in 2000s, when we were selling our infrastructure service, we started with what is internet, how is it helping, how is it going to change the life. So there's a lot of things that went into it, and because we were early adopters and we were early adopter, there were a lot of advantages that we had. So that was something really good about it. And the same thing happened when we went into the blockchain space, when we were telling users about various advantages that blockchain is going to make, how is it going to be secure. So that's the next adoption curve that we had. So it was always educating the users and getting the best out of them and showing them how the technology can change their lives, basically.
But that must have been a very hard journey, because to educate somebody, it takes long time, right?
Yes,
People
yes.
don't accept change right away, right?
Yes.
It takes long
It
time.
was a fundamental change. Like
Yeah.
if you think about something, like if you tell my father that you can send your son through a cab services, you don't have to trust a cab service, but he would never be allowing somebody to do that kind of work.
Yeah.
But now you see Uber is like everywhere. Everybody, nobody has to trust. So basically it's the technology that has built in the architecture in such a way that you don't have to depend upon individual people. It's a system driven approach that was taken. So that's the change that internet brought about. And now blockchain is bringing about a lot of places in the life, that you design such a system that you don't have to trust an individual person, that it would go wrong. Everybody behaves as they are programmed to work in the system that way. And definitely, to your question, it was definitely a very big challenge because it was an education involved. There were a lot of people who accepted it with open mind. There were a lot of people who did not accept it, even though they had to accept at the end of the day. Maybe not then, maybe after 4 or 5 years down the line. But in this scenario, what typically happens is, if somebody is able to explain it in a very excellent way, or who is somebody who's very charming, and if he has a malified intentions, he can really take them for a ride. So that was also a challenge. So when we were when we were approaching clients, we had some stories where they had already burned their hands paying money, and person disappeared overnight and he was not traceable and such. There are a lot of stories around that when there's a new technology comes, and then it becomes really difficult and hard to make them understand and convince them that this is something that we are there in the industry, and we are very serious about what we are doing, and we're going to be there in the time to come in. It's not like fly by night operators and then just run away.
Okay, great. But let's spill the beans a little bit more. Tech innovation, right, feels like a dream, a science fiction movie where anything is possible, right? But tech adoption, the reality hits hard, right? Because that is where you hit the ground, right?
Yes.
How did you manage to basically let people adopt to new technology?
So, as I said, it was a whole lot of education that wished to go in this thing. And obviously, that point of time, the technology was new, the frontiers were new, possibilities were very high. And people used to, people in India were typically not. So, if you tell something way back in 1998, as I told you, we started with whenever you go for prospecting with the client, first of all, we started with what is internet, how is it going to help? And then came a lot of other technologies. What is domain name? What is email? Why they need to buy email? How is it has to be secure? And why they need a reliable partner for providing all these services? Because as Indians, typically everybody is like the mindset of money. Like, what is the cost for this services? If somebody is offering these services at a little cheaper, or maybe way beyond cheaper, they just go in and they feel that everybody offers the same service. At the end of the day, we worked with a lot of big corporates. I don't want to name them. They had the domain name registered and the vendor just vanished.
Oh,
So that kind of experience also we had. We were able to recover the domain names. We since we had a lot of working relationship with registrars and all, we were able to recover the domain names. We were able to renew it. I typically we had 4 or 5 cases where such kind of things were happened where they had paid very less. The domain name was not renewed on time. Their email and website went down, and then they were like they don't know what to do. So that was the whole services typically at that point of time. But it was a lot of fun. But the only thing is when you are very serious about it and you start looking into it deeply, you start working, and there's when you get right kind of clients and client really respect you for how many services for the services that you're offering.
so Murphy, a few minutes back, you talked about like you have also banks as your clients,
Yeah,
right? How did you build trust to how did you win trust from banks, because it is very difficult, it is a very strict organization and a lot of compliance and procedures are kick in when you go out and work with a bank, right?
that's right.
Because there is money involved in it, so it's from financial sector. So
That's
how
right.
did you guys manage that?
So typically, it did not happen overnight. We started with a very small services. We were giving them services. They saw our services. That's when they scaled it over the period of time. As I said rightly, it's very difficult to work with a bank because they have a lot of guidelines. They have a lot of strict procedural formalities that they need to follow. They do a lot of background checks, and that's when we started a relationship typically with the very small services that we offered, and they saw that we were serious about it, and we were there in the industry, and that's how we grew up with them. So now they're pretty comfortable working with us. We don't have to go and trust them that we are in the service because we have a working relationship for them for more than 5 years, 10 years, something like that.
So
Typically,
this is important, like despite of you knowing more about the technology, about the new stuff, about everything, you did not go out and pitch everything on them, right?
yes,
You just took some small work, slowly built the trust, and then slowly started pitching other things that could
yeah,
make sense, right? So
yeah.
first open the door and then slowly see what else you can do with your client, right?
That's right. So typically, what happens is when you work with banks, financial institutions, they're governed with a lot of procedural formalities by the regulatory authority, something like an RBI, something like insurance IID, and all those kind of things which are there. So they lay a lot of strict guidelines. So typically, what we did was we started with small services. We gave them services. We gave them a lot of suggestions that how they can improve, and that's from how we started growing with them. They started trusting us, and they saw that we are very pretty serious about our services, and that's how we grew a relationship over the period of time.
Great, great. And Murphy, how did StorX happen?
So StorX typically, when we were working with this company called Zensoft Systems for a long time, and then we saw that there is still some advancements that needs to be done, and that's where slowly we started pivoting into the whole new geography of getting blockchain-based system. We saw that blockchain would be the next big thing that's going to come. That's going to make a lot of changes in the lifestyle. We very excited and. What do we say? We lot very with the new developments and the possibilities that was possible because of this blockchain was way beyond what internet was offering. So that's where we pivoted into this. We started an organization. Mr. Handy Barot is our founder. He had a vision to change a way in which the data was stored, and I found it really very intriguing. So, and then we started working with them. We started exploring a lot for 1 or 2 years. We are just researching like what would be the best ideal services that we should go out with. What should be the best services that would be making a mass appeal, and it should be something that people really wanted. As I told you, we saw the hype when the internet was just coming. Everybody wanted everything on the internet, which was not practically possible. And the blockchain also the same thing was happening around the same time, right? Everybody was giving so many promises and everything in the blockchain, and it's going to change the way in which the life is going to happen. And we found that since our core was infrastructure, and we had so much experience, we found that this is a typical area where there's going to make the blockchain is going to make a lot of difference, and our experience is going to make a lot of difference. So that's why we clubbed this together and offered the services of decentralized cloud storage, and that's how StorX began its journey.
So your role in StorX.
So so my role is the chief of growth officer. So I'm responsible for working with the clients, partners, and onboarding partners, and ensuring that we do POCs with them. We do new kind of partnership innovations. We work with clients and see how we could be best of use for them for the technology, given at the cost parameters and everything remains the same. So that's the core role that I have at StorX right now.
So Murphy, I'm a little curious. Uh, how is chief growth officer's role different from chief marketing officer? Are they both same or there is any difference?
So, growth typically, marketing officer is typically for a general organization where he goes and marketing the services. But in this, growth officer is something for a new concept because this is totally a new concept altogether. It
Yeah.
involves a lot of changes, working around a lot of principles, working around new things which are there, which people would not have seen. So marketing is typically you run ad promotions, you go to trade shows, you go campaigns and all those things. But this would involve much more deeper relationship because it involves talking with the customers, working with them to ensure that the services that we're offering blend with the requirements that they have. So it would be going down much more deeper level with them, understanding the requirement and then giving them the service rather than just marketing. So most of the thing is since I told this is right now in the adoption stage, people wouldn't. I cannot sell my services off the shelf like I can just market and people won't buy. So it would require actual working with the client, actual understanding the requirement, pitching the services in the same way, looking in for partners who are in the similar industry where we can join hands with them and offer services to their customers. So I'll give you a typical example. We work with a Canadian company who are into IoT based services. So they typically what they do is they provide IoT based smart services where what they do is they have hundreds and thousands of small IoT devices which are spread across various organizations. So they have typically cold storages, they have oil refineries, they have institution where these IoT devices are kept, and these IoT devices send signals to the main servers. The signals are processed and then it is shown to the customers with some smart processing that they do.
Yeah.
So when they were working for this kind of, when they were designing the system, what happened was typically they found out the amount of traffic that is going to be generated because these are thousands of devices which are going to send a lot of traffic in and out to these devices would way be beyond the storage cost that they're offering. So when they looked at a typical case scenario where they go to any of the hyperscalers and they give this requirement, the storage cost would be very less, but the egress cost, the bandwidth cost going to be 4x, 5x of the storage cost. And that's going to make the services very, very expensive. So what we did was typically we offered them the services. We worked with a tech team and we showed them that we could reduce the egress cost by 60 to 70%. That means they would be able to offer their services at 60 to 70% cheaper to their end customers. And then because they were able to offer these services at a cheaper cost to the end customers, they could offer them trials for free, 3 months for free, and the customer was willing to take, and this helped them to grow their business also. So that's what typically involves is it involves working with the customer, understanding the requirement, showing how we could add value to them. So that's the whole scenario how I typically work with, and that's how our organization works with.
So just so I understand, a chief growth officer is not just about marketing, it's marketing, sales, and a little bit of involvement in the ops also.
Yes,
and building the customer trust, right? So
Yes,
this is a kind of like a multi function job role kind of thing, right?
Yes. So that's what it involves. So it is typically like when we engage with the customer, the engagement goes on for 2 months or 3 months and working with them. And maybe at the end of the day, we realize that we are not a good fit for them. So we have to move them back to the hyperscaler. Like that would be the case in that case. So that is typically understanding the whole way of it. It's not only talking to their marketing, it would be talking to the sales CIOs and ensuring that the service that they require matches not only the quality parameters but the commercial levels also. Because once it's embedded, it's like a deep partnership that they have. They are dependent on us to provide their services also. We become the core part of their team rather than it's just like a vendor who's providing services that way.
Okay, great. And Murphy, you say like StorX is a blockchain powered distributed cloud storage system for your personal data, right?
Yeah.
That's too complicated for a layman to understand. Can you simplify this for us?
Okay, so simply put in, we are an alternative to Google Docs for so we operate in two scales. We operate in B2B and B2C. In B2B, what we do is basically we work with typical use cases as this Canadian company where we work with the partners. We help them store the entire data, and that's like a long-term partnership that we have. So we work with them, we understand the requirement, we do POCs with them, and then at the end of the day, 2 months, 3 months, we realize we are the right partners for them or we are not the right partners for them. That's typically it's a long chain. And then we work on B2C where we just provide users with a storage platform. So on the B2C part, we are just an alternative to Google Docs, Dropbox, or anybody. So if you are a typical end user who are looking to store some kind of data, you're not comfortable with your cloud provider who can see into your data, so you can use our services. You can go to storx.io, log in, and start storing the data. You can store it in your data. You can store in your email. You can store in any amount of information. We already have those kind of scenario built in, and we also have a 2 GB free package for users to just try out, so they can use a 2 GB. Till 2 GB, there's no charge for them. They don't have to put in the credit card. We don't ask them the details. We don't have any background details, anything. He can typically register with his email address and start using that, and remains free for life. He don't have to pay. We won't charge him anytime during this. So he can use it for storing the data, uploading the data, downloading the data, storing his emails. He can put his Gmail in autosync. We're soon coming up with Microsoft O365 email services where he can back up his email also automatically.
Okay. So how this is blockchain powered and distributed? That part I did not understand.
Okay, so I'll explain the whole scenario, like how this works.
Yeah.
So it's actually a beautiful orchestra which happening, a lot of people doing a lot of small playing, and the output comes as a single thing. So we are basically a typical storage solution. We use blockchain. So what we do is whenever a user is using to store our data, what happens is whenever he is using his laptop to upload the file, on the laptop or the desktop itself, we lock his file with his user's unique encryption keys. So that means the encryption key remains private to your device. It is not shared with anyone. Once the file is encrypted, it goes to StorX where it is broken down into small fragments. So suppose you have one file, we break it down into 10 pieces or 20 pieces, depending upon what is the kind of file that you have. And then we replicate those pieces there. So suppose we make 10 pieces, then we replicate that into 20 or 30 pieces, depending upon what is the algorithm the file has. And then this 30 chunk of data is distributed across all the nodes which are spread worldwide. So currently we have around 3,000 nodes which are spread across different world pieces. It would store a small fragment of this data everywhere. So what happens when typically you process the file in this scenario? So since your file is first encrypted at your desktop itself or your laptop itself, the encryption keys remain only with you. We also as a platform cannot see what is the data that you have. Okay. Then we break and replicate that fragments. That means if any of the node which is storing one fragment of your data loses or it's not available at that point of time, the system will always know where that same file is located on the other location. So it would typically go to that location, get that piece, and make the whole file again.
Okay, so just so that I understand, basically, I have some photos on my laptop, okay, which I wish to take backup on the cloud, so that if something happens to my laptop, my photos are safe. Okay?
That's right.
Now those photos get encrypted in my laptop only.
Yes.
Right. First, and then they get uploaded to your cloud system.
Yes.
From there, these are fragmented and stored across different locations.
That's right.
To make sure that there is a reliability. So if one server is down, the fragment can be fetched from some other server, and I still get back my data.
That's right.
What if I lose my laptop and the encryption keys are inside the laptop? Now my data is...
Okay, so that's a very good example. So what happens is whenever you're defining the system, it will ask you for a security question also. So it's just like an OTP or security question. You put that security question, you will be able to access that file. So typically when you're accessing your data from your laptop or your desktop, typically from where you access it, it won't ask you for the security questions or anything. But if you access that from a different location, it will ask you for a security question, which will then help you to relocate that file.
And if my laptop gets hacked, then my data on StorX is also compromised, right?
If he is able to access that with your system, then of course, because it's at the end of the day, it's your email ID which is access to the system.
Okay. Okay. And those encryption key also that live in my laptop, if the person gets a hold of those encryption keys, then also they will be able
Typically, yeah. Typically, what happens is whenever you're using your system, it's certain information stored in a system, certain information is stored on the platform. It all brings together and then opens your encryption key. That way.
Okay. Okay.
See, the only idea we kept it that you should not put in your encryption key because we earlier we were telling people to put in the encryption key and people used to forget after 3 months, 4 months.
Yeah.
So we make it invisible so that you don't have to remember. Typically the use cases don't remember the keys and then you access it that way.
Okay. And when you say like it's open source that anybody can audit your source code and stuff.
Yeah.
How is that not hackable? Like a hacker could study your code and understand how the platform works.
Yeah, we have made the code open. So the code is open, but he's not having access to a system, right? A system is encrypted properly. We just wanted to show people that the data processing that we do is we're not playing around with your data. So the system is intact. The system is secure enough running from the servers. It's only the source code which is open on the GitHub. You can go and see what is the kind of processing that we do on this.
Okay, so only the processing part of your...
So the complete processing part is open for the people. Typically Linux, like if you see Linux, they are all like open source, right?
Yeah.
The entire process is open and there are millions of dollars of organization which are running on Linux. Yeah. So it's not that easy to hack in and study the system, and you can create a new system out of it, but it's very difficult for you to hack it. That thing.
Okay, and you know about the blockchain is also hackable, right? And I hear and read a lot about, like, you know, there are companies who are providing security audits around your blockchain technology, whether it is hackable or not. Have you ever faced any kind of such instances where you got a threat about your blockchain implementation?
So typically what happens is there are multiple parts of the blockchain which are like which are prone to hackings and all those things. So when you talk about it, it could be a smart contract, it could be a token, it could be anything. So typically a smart contract is one which controls the entire system, and the smart contract is always audited with the third party security. So we have done 3 audits of our smart contract 3 times, and we put the certificates also online so people can know that's audited by third party and secured to its limits. So that's already done by us. And as I told you, this system is typically running a lot of blockchain and a lot of other security which rides. So we are built on top of XDC blockchain. So that is again audited by third party, and they do their audits regularly and keep publish the report. So all these things ensure that the data remains safe and secure.
So this is very important for our viewers also. If you are creating something around blockchain technology, better get it audited by a third party security agency who are good at this, rather than deciding yourself that everything is secure. Like Murphy said that they went through 3 audits, right? So in those audits, those experts guided them basically how these things are to be secured, rather than we trying to go on the internet and find out the things and then saying that, you know, everything is all right and my product is great, right? Because one small mistake can land you into catastrophe.
Yes. So typically what happens is, since you're processing user data, since you're processing a lot of transactions and all, so typically it's always advisable to get it audited and audited 2 or 3 times, so that you know, because what happens is the blockchain also changes a lot of version keeps on happening. As I told you, we are built on top of XDC. That version keeps on changing. So we need to ensure that we follow the security parameters always. So I told you, we audit ourselves. We audit our smart contract regularly. The XDC blockchain on top of which we are built, it's also audited. So that also
Right.
ensures that it's audited regularly, and they audit with one of the best audit firms in the world. And those certificates also are placed online. So you ensure like it's not just telling that you have audited, you have the certificates available online. So if you
You
go
have a
to our
proof saying that this has been done properly,
yeah,
right?
properly. So if you go to our GitHub code, you will see that we have audited and the audit certificate is also kept open by the third party. So you know that those are reliable security auditors, and they have published their audit reports that this we have audited it, and it ensures that the data remains secure and reliable.
Okay, great. And Murphy, you guys say like, you are economical. You're
Yeah.
70 to 90% cheaper than basically the traditional cloud storage.
Yes.
As
Yes.
I understand that this is like a kind of like, you have blockchain also, you have distributed cloud systems also. Those must have been very expensive things to implement. Then how can you be like a little like cheaper than the existing cloud storage providers? What's the math here?
Okay, so that's also a very interesting question that I keep getting asked again and again. So, as I gave you a typical example of this Canadian company, the IoT company, which was setting up the whole organization, and they found out that the cost of the bandwidth is going to be very high. So we are playing at the exact costing that is going to be different is in the cost of egress cost or bandwidth cost. Because once you start consuming a lot of traffic, see, if you look at the typical traditional hyperscaler bill, first of all, you will not understand so easily because the bills
Yeah.
are 10 pages. So if you have, if you see on happening traditionally, if you look at the hyperscaler bill, it would be like 5 pages, 4 pages, and they would have given this started, this started. It's very difficult to actually look into it and understand what is happening. So what we did was, since we are built on blockchain technology, so it's kind of, we are using distributed technology. We're using these servers which are already there present in the market. We're not creating any new data centers. We are not creating any new servers. We are not renting any new servers. It's all the spare capacity that is available in the market. We're trying and leasing it out. So that helps us to bring in the cost too much. And since we are on a distributed nature, we are able to give you a very high amount of egress compared to any other service providers. So these are the typical two things that help us to go beyond the other hyperscalers. So hyperscalers, if you see, if for all as I told you earlier, that the hyperscalers have two costs. One is the storage cost and one is the egress cost. In case if you're just using it for storage, it would be very, very economical for you. But once you start using it in a very high way, the volume goes on high, the bandwidth goes on high, you typically end up paying more of egress cost than the storage cost.
So just so that I understand, basically, uh, you get some space on cloud. Say
Yes.
I do a lot of content creation, so I get 2 terabyte space on the cloud. Okay, so that is, I'll be charged to keep that 2 terabyte space on the cloud,
Yeah.
right? But then I will also be charged when I upload and download the files, right?
That's right.
Which is
So
the
yeah.
bandwidth consumption.
Yes, so that's what's actually the egress cost. It's called as egress cost. So that
Egress
is the,
cost.
yeah, that's the one thing which is killing most of the organization. So typically, what we see is, as I told you, the storage cost would be very nominal, but the egress cost is no cost which will go on keep on high, and that keeps on going high as you keep on consuming the bandwidth. So the more amount of bandwidth that you consume, the more amount of egress bill is going to come. So what we are able to typically offer is, since we are distributed, we are able to offer this at a very low cost compared to the other service providers. So that's how we are able to 60% at least cheaper compared to all the egress cost, which is offered by the hyperscalers.
Okay, great. So uh, basically, you are uh, reducing the egress cost,
Yes,
which is a long term impact factor, right?
that's right.
Because today you're going to buy something from a hyperscaler and you're very happy about it because it is very economical. But as your organization scales, this also increases the cost in multifold, but you are
Ye-
able to tap that down, right?
Yes. So that's the major cost. So typically the storage cost and the egress cost, as I told you, the egress cost is always going to be higher when you're using it on day-to-day basis, when you're
Yeah.
uploading, downloading the data on a very large scale. It keeps on growing, and it keeps on growing the way you use it. So it is not going to be less, more, or anything. The way you're going to use it. Suppose you get typically hacked by a service, you get hacked, and there's a huge amount of bandwidth that you might end up paying 10x of the storage cost that you actually have for egress. So suppose
Right.
your storage cost will be 10, your egress cost will be 10x on the storage cost that you have. So typically that's where the organization don't understand, are not able to keep the cost down. So that is what one thing that we can help you with.
Okay. For example, there is a SaaS company who are using the storage solution.
Yeah,
Now, initially, it's a startup, so might have very little customers. But
that's
then,
right.
when you scale up to thousands or millions of customers trying to access the storage at a time, then your actual costing comes out, right?
Yes, it is going to be a very huge cost, and if they don't do something about it, it actually becomes a huge part of your cost, which you would have not accounted when you started the organization. So you need to account that egress cost very well when you and something that doesn't require egress, or you can typically divide it between egress, huge egress, less egress, and you can store allocate the resources accordingly. And if you're able to play around this with very well, you can manage your billing cost. Otherwise, your cloud cost will be very high compared to any other services that you provide.
This is interesting. So, Murphy, what advice you would give to our viewers when they are planning about cloud storage costs, and when they are planning about putting things on the cloud alongside with their business?
Okay, so I'll give you a typical example that
Yeah.
that is like 80% of the times people don't understand. So when you start your business, typically when a startup starts a business or business is started, they get free cloud credits.
Yeah.
They start. That's typically like you get $100,000, $50,000. People are very happy. Like I
Yeah.
can use cloud with this, and they start putting in their application. They start designing the application around it, and typically 6 months, 7 months, you're just starting up, you start giving, and you've not accounted for a cloud cost in the long term. You're already accounting that this $10,000 or $5,000 credit that you have is going to play a long term with you. Okay. And then typically after 6 months and 8 months is where it started pinching you, where you actually offered the services. Now your cost of storage is higher, your cost of cloud is higher, and your cloud egress is higher, and you still have to offer the same kind of service at the same cost. So if you don't do your max well, and if you don't account for this costing, you will end up losing money from every customer that you get.
Oh, so most
Yeah.
of it will be gone to the hyperscaler, right?
Yes, most of the price. So if you look, typically, if you look at the SaaS companies today, uh, the cost of storage and the cost of so we just do cloud storage. We don't do computing.
Yeah.
So the major cost of any organization would be the computing cost, the egress cost, and the storage cost. This would
Okay,
be
so
three
that
typical costs, which would be very, very high. And they need to, and by the time you realize that the cost is going up, you are locked into the contract. And because you have taken free credits, you've also signed up a contract, long-term
yeah.
contract with them. So you end up paying much more amount than what you started with. So that's the typical scenario which you find with major of the SaaS companies which are there, and major of the startups which start up with this. They are very happy when they get this free cloud credit, they start up with this, but they find themselves locked into it and paying them huge amount of money. So the day they started would be like $0 for the cloud, and they should just evaluate after 12 months, 36 months, what was the charges they had paid for cloud, what is the charges they paid for computing, what is the charges they paid for egress. That would go out very high.
Yeah, the problem is like when you are on free credits, you
Yeah.
get the invoices with everything 00000,
Yeah.
right?
Mm.
So you don't know what exactly you're spending on, right?
Yes. So
So
typically you should go to a company or an organization or a friend who has used the cloud and who has used it for 36 months, 12 months, and then see what is the bill that comes in.
right,
I don't
right.
realize I'm too happy. I'm so excited. I got free,
Yeah,
and I'm just not looking at that cost. But at the
yeah.
end of 12 months, 16 months, you are locked in that contract in such a difficult way. It would be very difficult for you to come out of it. typically.
Yeah. Or just have a alternate approach that it's okay, I get the free credits and I'm happy about it. But from day one, I need to talk to the provider and calculate what is going to be the cost when I did not had this credit. Right.
Yes. So you typically take the cost as in case if you had not got credits and you're using. So what happens is earlier when you're a startup, you're very happy. You're just starting up. So you don't look at, because you already got free credits. You're not looking at how much amount that is going in typically and what is the bill that you come in. But the ideal scenario would be talk to someone, talk to a friend, talk to a colleague or somebody who is running the same organization, who is running it for 36 months, 12 months, 18 months, and see what is the cloud, what is the lock-in that he got in, and what is
Yeah.
the cloud that he's paying right now. So typically he has to account for that cost. And in most of the time, what happens is around 18 months to 24 months is the time when they start getting paybacks. That's actually you are paying to the service provider for the free credit that you, and
Yeah.
that's normally 2x of the free credits that you got. So typically,
Oh.
that would be for a SaaS who is doing good enough with a good sizable bandwidth. They're locked into the contract for 24 months, 36 months, and they end up paying the whole. They lose whole advantage for which the free services was offered. So my suggestion would be always consider that cost. Don't go in for anything, and if they can look into other services, like look into something like maybe they can run the services for virtual private servers or bare metal servers, where the cost is always calculative. So you can calculate the cost of a virtual private server for the next 12 months. You can calculate the cost for a bare metal server for next 12 months, considering if you go twice the bandwidth that you have that way.
Nice, nice. And Murphy, if someone from our viewers seeks some guidance or advice, do you guys provide this kind of advice also to people, like basically how they can plan their cloud infrastructure?
Yeah, we can typically help them out. We can typically, even if it's not our service, we always like to work with the with entrepreneurs. If they have any such hosting infrastructure requirements, we can guide them. We can help them also. We can help them to locate and provide them services also that way.
So this is really good, because some kind of guidance or some kind of mentorship is required, especially for startups. So I would request our viewers, if you have certain kind of questions, do put them down into the comments, and me and Murphy will try to answer them. And you can
Sure,
also
sure.
reach out to Murphy. I will put the email ID and the website in the description, so you can always reach out and seek for any advice or help you need.
Sure, sure. If
So that's
anybody needs infrastructure related any issues, if they want to try it out, if they want to, so typically what happens is the hyperscalers have good services built around there, so it is very good for a startup to start up with. But typically, when the journey starts and they start earning money, is there when they start feeling the pinch. So if you try to put in, if you try to like worldwide, there is an anti-conversion going on right now. People are moving back to either bare metal servers. People are moving back to in-premises also right now. There are cases where typically they were able to save a lot of money because they moved into bare metal servers or hyperscalers. So that kind of thing should also be considered in their mind when they're doing info. So it should be a holistic picture. It's not that this is good or that is good. For some organization, cloud would be the best service, but some organization can save using bare metal servers, virtual private servers, those kind of things. So if users have a holistic approach, that they will be able to typically save amount using this, and this will
superb.
help them to grow a long term also.
Superb, superb. So, Murphy, moving on, let's go down to a little personal side of you. So, when you're going through this whole journey, right, what were the tough moments that you faced?
So typically, as you know, entrepreneurs are like they need good family support, because it's for everyone. It's like a celebrated pathway, but it's not that. It's very very lonely. Typically, you have every days you have you're firefighting with some way or the other. You need to take care of a lot of things. When in this journey, so typically you need good friend support, you need good family support, and you need to ensure that they are around there for you and the
Yeah.
families around there. Otherwise, you end up even if you end up being successful, you'll be lonely at the end of the day.
Okay. And what was the role of your family in your journey?
Typically, I think my family was there always right next to me, and I didn't feel at any point of time I was lonely. I was depressed because of this matter. So I would always reach out for the family. The love was there, the support was there always. So that's how we grew typically to this stage.
And did you have any mentor during this whole journey?
There are a lot of people who guided us. A lot of typically, I was lucky enough when we started our journey. We met a lot of businessmen who guided us. So for them, it was like new for them. They were also learning, and I was learning from them. So typically, we had a lot of good entrepreneurs who were helping us, who were guiding us, like you should do this and that thing, and that's how we grew basically. So there are a lot of clients who had helped us by giving them money on the right time, of course, by paying on the right time, by ensuring that we paid well, we paid on time. That was also very good support from them.
Okay, great. And how do you envision StorX in next 5 years?
So as I told you, this cloud storage industry is one of the biggest industry. It is one of the best industry to be in. It has one of the best compounded growth rate for the whole rate. Typically, what we are looking is we're looking to be as an alternative to hyperscalers, to be for storage service requirements. So any typically we want to be a go-to company for the storage. For storage, we coming up with good backup use cases. There are a lot of good interesting cases that we are working on where people can use us for backup, and they will get real value because a backup right now is the traditional way of storing the backup is you are storing typically a backup in one location unencrypted, and anything happens to that location, your data is gone.
Yeah.
So typically, whereas when you use StorX for backing up your data, you are encrypting it, you're distributing it, you ensure that the data remains safe, those kind of things. So it's a very good use case that we see coming up in the coming years.
So you mean you want to be an alternative to hyperscalers for common people who want to store their personal data, right?
Yes. So store their personal data, store their business data, or back up their data in
Yeah.
third location. We want to
Yeah.
be the go-to choice for that.
All right, amazing. And Murphy, yours journey has been like, from early day chaos to, getting to clarity, right?
Yeah.
So today, if I ask you, uh, what does clarity mean to you?
Clarity. Yeah, that's a very difficult question in one line to answer. I think somebody can get answer to he can become Gautam Buddha. That's what I think. That's so it's too much to actually get from a human life. But yeah, of course, because now you've already had so much of experience. You have decade of experience working around this. You know what is the things that are going to come. But still, because the industry is evolving, there's a lot of new things like earlier days, internet was evolving. We are learning a lot of things. Now blockchain is evolving. We are learning a lot of things. So typically that keeps on growing and you get to learn a lot of things. But since you have an experience of one whole cycle of business, things become a little easier for you. I cannot say it's clear, but it is little less difficult for navigate. That would be the right answer, I think. Clarity would
Okay.
be something would to ask too much for, but it's little less difficult because you have journeyed, you have experience from prior this thing, so it becomes less difficult
So
to
take
navigate.
that step and your experiences will help you gain more clarity every single day, right?
Yes, yeah.
And Murphy, what message do you want to give to our viewers?
I think India has a great young talent. I see they're always hungry. The people who are willing to learn new things, people who are willing to experiment. I think they should keep their spirit up. That's one thing that we should not lose always. You should always be curious. You should always be willing to learn new things and try out new things. That is
Great.
some they should. That's something that should keep in with them always.
Great, wonderful. Murphy, it was an amazing conversation. We got to know a lot of things about the blockchain, about the distributed cloud storage, and how things work. And our viewers definitely have got a lot of beautiful insights from you. So thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you very much, Piyush. It was glad to be a part of it.
So this was Murphy John from StorX, and I hope you liked the story. If you did, do subscribe to our channel and hit that bell icon. We have episodes every Thursday, 7 p.m. India time. You were listening to Chaos to Clarity. I am Piyush Thakkar, and I'll see you in the next one.